Boom, we're live. Welcome back to the Elite Sales Pros podcast, the show where we break down psychology, strategy, and execution behind world-class deal makers. Today's guest is someone who generated over 80 million in revenue, helped close 35 million in capital deals, and now is the founder of Zaidwood Capital, a firm transforming how companies raise and scale. Please welcome Mr. Bryann, a visionary, sales strategist, and capital advisor who's redefining what is meant to build and close at the highest level. Mr. Bryann, welcome.
Great to be here, Philip. Thank you.
Tell me, first of all, where you're calling from.
I am in Palm Beach, Florida, so about an hour and a half north of Miami.
I'm not going to ask what's the weather. That's like the worst thing to ask in sales if you ask me.
I
But
agree wholeheartedly.
yeah, how long have you been there for? Is that your main headquarters or?
This is HQ for me. This is kind of my home base. I do a good bit of traveling because of the work, but I try to spend at least a third of my time every year here.
And that's great to hear. What are the other two places where you go throughout
Well, I do
these?
good bit of time in Latin America as well, and then traveling all over the US depending on conferences, deals, clients, and so forth. So the third is kind of fully on the move.
Nice. So tell me how everything started, your whole sales entrepreneurship journey. Like, we don't have to go way back, but what was the biggest point that let's say changed your perspective when you really went all in?
It was early. It was early in my 20s. I always see sales as kind of a catch-all industry. And so I feel like anyone who doesn't know where they're headed, they end up in a sales career in some point or another. And it kind of happened to me similarly. I had an early mentor when I was working in the gyms who told me, he's like, look, I'm going to teach you a skill that's going to make sure that you never go hungry. And he sure did. And at this point, I was well over 10 years ago, and I've been expanding on it ever since.
What was the type of sales that you started first?
So I started in gym sales, and
That's
I started slinging memberships, and then I moved into working and selling training packages, and eventually managing a whole sales training team in different gyms. So I was sent to different places to fix up their numbers, fix up their teams, and then from there, reposition myself and got into corporate sales.
a little Alex Hormozy story at the beginning.
I like Ormozi's story. It resonates with me heavily. So yeah, we have a bit of an overlap in that background.
Nice stuff. And tell me, obviously, aside your mentor, who influenced you the most at the beginning of your career and today as well?
Early on, I was a big fan of Cardone. I worked with a lot of his content, whether it was Closer Survival Guide, built out an entire manual for all of my trainers and my sales guys based off of Closer Survival Guide. So I took all of the best objection handling skills and put together an entire like binder that I would use to teach my guys. So early on, his stuff, his Cardone University. Nowadays, I don't feel like there's any one specific mentor that I work with. I think I've picked a little bit from a lot of guys. So whether the really well-known guys, the Oren Claffs, and even some of Cardone's newer stuff, and then some of the guys in the high-ticket space. So Cole's material, Bill Walsh's material. I feel like I've learned from a few guys and kind of meshed everything together into my own identity.
Same here. Looking back, what's the biggest misconception about high-level deals that you had when you started and nowadays when you have, you know, ability to look from different perspective?
That's a really great question. I think one of the most common misconceptions is that there is this massive difference between a low level and a high level deal. And there really isn't. At the end of the day, the deal is going to be a deal inevitably. Yes, there's a bit more complexity when you're working with larger numbers, you're working with businesses, you're working at a larger transaction, but at the end of the day, you're still working through people. And so whether you're sitting in the precipice of a 7, 8, 9-figure deal, or you're closing someone for a $35 monthly gym membership, you're still working with a person who has his goals, a person who has his values, a person who has their own ideals, and who has a set of intrinsic motivations that all you have to do is find out and line that up with the outcome that you're trying to sell on. That once I understood that, everything became a lot less pressured, and I could start seeing the overlap between both conversations.
Makes sense. Tell us about Zaidwood Capital, like what inspired its creation and how is it different from traditional companies?
So Zaidwood came about almost happenstance. I feel like a lot of my entrepreneur's journey has been me going out there, kind of moving from event to event, and then finding someone who will reposition me. So I always say the end goal has always been the same, which is continued freedom and obviously financial security, but I've never been too rigid on the path. And so as I exited my previous business, partner and I built a successful AI and marketing agency. I took a bit of time off after that and tried to figure out, okay, what's my next move? Well, let me go back into what I know, which is sales. So after a few months off, which didn't take too long for me to jump back in there, I took a few months off and I found capital raising. And so a few of my contacts connected me. And as happens when you've got a pretty good social network, the guys that you start meshing with and doing things with, they're usually at a higher level as you climb. So they're more involved in larger projects. And one of them mentioned capital raising. He mentioned a firm, and I saw the ability very quickly to pull on a lever that was a lot bigger than what I was working on. So, same thing, I'm closing deals. I'm using the sales skills. I can leverage the same outcomes and I can leverage the same tools that I used when I was building my own agency and helping business owners, but I can just get paid a lot more for it. And I was like, yeah, this is the perfect meshing of what I was looking for. And so started Zaidwood. What makes this different? And at this point, I've been in capital raising and in the finance space for well over a year now. And one other thing I've seen that makes this so different to so many of the others that are out there is that Zaidwood isn't just led by financiers. Yes, my team has bankers, guys who did 20, 30 years in Wall Street, who have run boutique firms, who worked at some of the big name banks. But what it also has is that we have operators. Many of us are entrepreneurs, business owners. So when I look at a business, I don't just look at it from spreadsheets and numbers, but I also understand the deeper levels of what a business entails. And so we're able to make some very strong judgments on more than just the numbers in terms of who we want to back and who we believe in. And it's the perfect meshing of both. I think a good firm has your operators and has your financial experts, and it comes together to create a really cohesive ecosystem. And I've found that a lot of the people that I've worked with and spoken to in the space over the last year, sometimes they have one piece or the other, but they don't have them both.
It takes time. What metrics or indicators tell if a company is truly ready for, to scale to seven figures or beyond? What would you say?
I think there's a few. The first thing that I always look at is the people. So is the management team, is the operator or the operating team of the business, what's their background, what's their level of expertise, and what's the level of involvement in the business? And when I mean level of involvement, it's like, what's their understanding of the day-to-day basis? Is it someone who fully understands every piece of their business from the top of the funnel all the way to the bottom, all the way to the back end customer success and what really makes a business move? The next is there a repeatable process that they've set in place that can continue to generate revenue time and time again? Great. You reached 500,000 for the year in terms of revenue. Was that because you closed 1 to 2 large contracts that were completely unexpected? Or is it because you have a repeatable process that it's pretty much a mathematical equation over and over again, and all you need is to add more firepower to what you already have? If you have one, but you lack the proper operators, your business isn't going to get to that next level. If you lack or have the great operators, but you lack the predictable process that you guys can execute on time and time again, you're not going to get there either. You have to have a good mix of both. Once you have both, scaling from where you're at to that next milestone for the business is just about execution. That's all it is.
And what are core habits or frameworks that you and your team rely on so you stay sharp, Dane?
Procedures, man. Processes, procedures. The one thing that I found action-oriented A players, top salespeople sometimes lack in many of the things that I've had to work on. I'm very A-type. Let's get after it. Here's the goal. We'll figure out how to get there. Let's just put action and let's just execute. Great. But is there a process? Is there a process for every aspect of the business? How you do A is how you're going to do B. How you close a client and the quality that you offer during that is how you're going to onboard the client. Is there a process for every aspect of the business? And if you don't take the time to build that foundation, you're going to fall apart as stuff starts to scale and build. And so you need to be very cognizant of that.
It's true. You worked both on also the sales end and capital raising part of the business. How does raising capital differ from selling a product or a high ticket service?
You know what's funny is that I've thought this question a lot. And even when I coach some of the guys who are in the early stages of starting their firm or who aren't finding the level of success with the firm as they're hoping to, is that there isn't a ton of difference. There really isn't. At the end of the day, what you're selling is inevitably an end result. That's it. The difference is that on one side, you're selling an outcome that's tied to a certain level of capital that you'll bring through the door. On the other side, you're selling an item, a product, a project that's still an outcome. And so there isn't that much of a key difference in terms of the approach. And the cool thing about capital raising itself is that you're selling at different aspects of it. When you sell a regular product, you're like, okay, this is product A. I sell, there's a currency exchange. You go off and you get your end result and we're done. When you work with someone from the capital raising side, it's a bit different because you're selling through a couple different processes. And so you're lending confidence to the client that you're going to be the right team to get them the capital. But now you're going to package this business as the next product. And now you're going to bring that over to your investors and you're going to sell your investors on the idea that this is going to be the right product for them. And so you're selling a couple of products all at once when you capital raise. And there's a couple of different ways that you're going to adjust the product as you go through. But overall, tons of similarities.
Nice. And what are the most common mistakes entrepreneurs make when they pitch investors or try to scale prematurely?
The pitch investors. Let's go over that one because that one's
Hey.
always probably my favorite question. I see between 6 to 10 opportunities a day, just personally. My guys are obviously reviewing opportunities as well. So we're getting pitched to pretty consistently. The number one mistake that I see is there's no sort of defined avatar or ICP. No matter how good your product is, there is going to be an ideal version of a person that you sell to or a company that you sell to. You're not going to be able to sell to everyone. And if you come to me and you tell me that your product is going to solve X, Y, and Z, and that this is the TAM, total addressable market, and this is how much money is out there, and we're going to be able to capture all that, we both know that's not viable. It's simply impossible. So that would be the first one. Have an identifiable ICP, have a legitimate avatar. To lead with the problem and explain the problem. Many times they'll lead with the solution itself without really underlying what the existing problem is and why it is a problem. As the project owner, the sponsor, the inventor, the owner of this entire project or product, you need to lead with what the problem is and why the problem is important. If you can't convey that to me very quickly, more than likely I'm not going to be open to moving into next steps, and neither are investors. Because remember, when you sell a product, right? If I sell you a phone, you already understand what a phone does. It means to me that either A, you have a broken phone and you need a new phone, or B, you're looking to upgrade your existing phone, but you understand everything about the phone. This product affects you directly. When you're pitching an investor, it may not be a problem that they have to deal with directly. So why is it valuable to them?
All different ball game. You also mentioned learning from powerful mentors. What's one principle that completely shifted how you view business?
Problems are inevitable. Expect them. There is no perfect solution. There is no perfect process. There is no perfect step by step that you're going to take in terms of a plan that's going to avoid a problem. Your ability to provide solutions for inevitable unforeseen problems and execute on the solution is going to be the sole determinant of if you're successful or not, no matter what it is that you go after in life. If you play sports at a high level, You are going to get injured. That's part of the game. If you're in sales, you're going to miss a deal that was supposed to come in. If you're in capital raising, you may not get the investor that you were initially expecting for this specific project. And so understanding at every point of the game that you're going to have a problem will give you a lot more comfort than hoping that stuff just works out, because very rarely does it. Not perfectly.
So my next question, like, how do you approach decision making when millions are on the line, of course, with all that pressure?
Well, it depends what you mean by pressure. And I think quantifying pressure is important. When you look at pressure, you have to genuinely ask yourself, is this life altering pressure? And I think an issue that we have quite often is that we put the tag of pressure or the title of pressure on things that aren't really that stressful or that pressure like. And so for working to raise some capital for a business, yes, there's a responsibility that we hold to our client to get them that money. There's a responsibility that we hold to the people that we work with. But I mean, is it pressure? Or is anyone on the line? Is anyone's life on the line? Is anyone not going to eat because you do something wrong? Maybe, but more than likely, probably not. And I think the next step is when it comes to the decision making process, you should have a plan that you're able to execute no matter the situation. You should have a process that you use. Mine is simple. I look at all of the activities necessary and I just think what's highest leverage every single time. If I have to make a decision, what's highest leverage? Where am I going to be able to pull to reach the most ideal outcome, where the outcome is going to get us one step closer to whatever the next step is? And so I think from a highest leverage percentage at all moments. If I'm looking at the business, 1,000 fires are going to happen inevitably. What's the highest leverage? If I look at my calendar and I have an internal meeting, a meeting with a potential investor, and a meeting with a potential new project, what's highest leverage? Well, I have an active capital raise right now. I'm going to go talk to that investor first. The new project can definitely wait. And then the lowest tier of on that process is going to be the internal meeting. I have enough guys on my team who are very good at what they do where they're not going to need me.
Yeah. And tell me, if you had to rebuild your whole business from zero, how would you structure first 90 days?
Great question. Find the right mentors or partners first is what I would do. When I got into capital raising, I understand business development. I understand how to be an operator. I understand sales and marketing very, very intensely. But when it comes to capital raising, I didn't have the wealth of financial knowledge that many other guys did. And so the first thing I did is that I got mentored and I partnered with some really great guys who had the background. So my first 2 weeks would be focused on let me find the best possible mentors in the space who I can sell into the dream of my capabilities and what I want to build. Once I did that, they're going to form the foundation. Their expertise and their relationships are going to help form the base on the next step that I'm going to take for the business. From there, I tapped right into my network and figure out what are the key pieces of the business that I'm great at and what are the key pieces of business that I'm not great at. And so from there, I'm going to try to fill out the blocks of the business where I'm not great at, but I know that these are exceptional parts that the business is going to be relying upon for me to be able to be successful. Sales is what I do. It's what I love. It's what I've been doing. It's what I've taught. It's what I coach. Marketing is what I do, but I do not love it. I'm not as great of it at sales as I am. I am exceptional at sales. I'm pretty good at marketing. And I knew that if I split my time amongst both, the business wasn't going to work. So I immediately went out there and found people who could fill that marketing hole for me. And then from there, put together their skill sets, my skill sets, sat down with my mentors and created an exact plan of execution. From there, build the Rolodex. Let's find the right investors and then go out there and leverage those investor relationships to find the most ideal projects to start filling out those mandates.
As they say,
And
you're
then just
just some of
execute.
the 5 people who spend the most time with. So it is cliche, but it is true. Whenever I look, it's always
It's
the case.
it is an inevitable truth of life.
And tell me, everyone that's successful, when I talk to them, they all have their daily, weekly, and monthly routines, schedules that they live by on Google Calendar. They swear by Google Calendar, same as me. Tell me, like, do you have something similar? I assume in order. How does your day look like?
It's gonna be so cliche. It's unfortunately so cliche, but it's the same process that I've been running for a long time through my early 20s, and it's what I found is most successful, at least for me. I'm a morning person. I've always been a morning person. I always like to say this, and I sprinkle this in when I have some conversations with my own network. I know a lot of people who are successful who are not morning people. They operate on a different schedule, so this is by no end of set in stone. But I wake up early every single day. I start the day the exact same way. I do my reading, I do my journaling, I set my intention for the day. From there, I go out and I knock out my early morning workout. I like to get all of that stuff out of the way because I know that once my first morning meeting hits, the likelihood of me having to go to a very long day is likely. Stuff is going to happen. Might not be done at 5:30, 6 o'clock and be able to go to the gym at that time. More than likely, something somewhere, someone is going to need my time, whether that's one of my guys, whether that's one of my clients, or something else is going to pop up, a potential event where I can have a dinner with someone in the network. So I like to leave the rest of my day open for me to have that malleability, that mobility. Journal, reading, early morning workout, get it all out of the way so that I can set the intentions for the rest of the day. First meeting starts at 9 a.m. I put together a small list of activities that need to get done. If you try to run off the top of your head, it's not going to work. I've got my calendar. I've got my list of have to dos that need to be finished before the end of the day, and then just time block.
The right way to do it. Tell me, what type of workout are you doing? Is it something like cardio or something intense, weightlifting, stretching?
So I got into CrossFit gym, I want to say well over a year and a half ago. I've worked out my entire life. I started lifting weights when I was 14 and been pretty athletic. I'm 34 now, so it's 20 years of lifting weights. Yeah. We've been at this for a long time. So I've tried everything. What I found worked out most for me is a relatively high intensity sort of workout. And so it's not an exact WOD, but it has different variations of high rocks, CrossFit, a lot of movement, a lot of mobility, 45 minutes get in and out. I'm going to do some sort of strength exercise, and then I'm going to do some accessory work in there as well. I just try to keep the heart rate up.
Do you know who do you remind me of when we speak about athletes?
No,
Gable Stevenson, the
the
wrestler.
wrestler? Yeah.
Uh, same
Yeah,
person.
that was, yeah, that is, I mean, that's a heck of a guy to remind you of.
The world champs. He's going to I think UFC now. He's trains with
He's
John
going to do
Jones.
incredibly well.
No doubt about that. Great stuff. Any fun facts about you? What would you say? Always ask people this.
So some people don't know this, but prior to moving to the US, I lived in the Dominican Republic. I grew up with my family owning a farm. So I know how to ride horses, herd cows, I cut down sugar cane, did the whole nine. So I am just as comfortable in a pair of rubber boots as I am is some nice dress shoes in a boardroom.
Builds character, definitely. And strength and being serious. So definitely a great background, if you ask me. Now, let's go back to the Zaidwood Capital. Where do you see its future and also the whole financial landscape, let's say, heading in the next 5 years from now?
In terms of the landscape itself, with the massive push into technology, AI, we're going to see massive continued investments into manufacturing at data centers and overall energy infrastructures here for the US. There's going to be a significant push into nearshoring projects that we're already beginning to see today. In the last year, we've seen a shift that's moved out of healthcare, biotech, medtech projects with significant investments in anything that's bringing money back into the US and manufacturing and energy jobs back into the US. And so I think that investment's going to continue. The investments into critical metals and rare metals as well is only going to go and become a lot larger. Unfortunately, with a bit of the political climate at the moment, becoming self-sufficient is going to remain top of mind for the US, and US-based investors are going to continue to deploy capital really aggressively at gobbling up as many of these projects as they can. And of course, expanding our footprint to cover more of these projects internationally. We're seeing right now a good bit of investments as well happening into mines with a hope of exclusivity for the US to make us or to better position us in a place where we can compete with China. So that as a whole, I think is going to continue and expand over the next few years. How that's going to affect us, inevitably there'll be a ripple effect. From there, it'll be interesting to see what happens next at the advent of kind of this AI bubble that's currently happening.
And tell me, what legacy are you hoping to build beyond business?
That's an interesting question. Post business, I want to build something that offers my family the two things. One, the comfort to be able to live as freely as they possibly can. So whether it's my future kids or grandkids or even the family that I have around me now, that they have the ability to choose the path that they want to. Two, I want to be remembered for building something that was a lot larger than I was. I want to be remembered for being able to build something from the ground up that many people viewed as difficult, maybe not impossible, but definitely as difficult. And to have known that I was able to push through and kind of overcome those obstacles and got it done, and be seen in my family as somebody who could pioneer.
Amen to that. And finally, before I let you go, if you could leave listeners with one mindset shift that changed your life, what would that be?
Embrace the problems. The bigger the problem that you can solve, the better the solution that you can put together. You are almost guaranteed success in life. Wake up every morning with a solution oriented mindset and embrace every single problem that comes to you. If you develop this skill, if you embrace this mindset, there's very little you're not going to be able to achieve.
Perfect. Mic drop. Tell me now, where can people find you? Where are you most active? Is it your website, Instagram, something else maybe?
You can always go to zaidwoodcapital.com. You can find me on Facebook at Bryann Cabral. I do a bit of stuff on Instagram. I'm not there too actively, but also LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I think, is always going to be the best network to find me between LinkedIn and Facebook.
Are you really on LinkedIn or is it your VA?
It's a bit of both. That's a good question. It's a bit of both. Some of the outreach done by some of my team and some of my analysts, but yes, I am on LinkedIn. I do respond and I do post my own content. So any material that's written up there was by me.
At the end of the day, they're going to book a call with you. So, we're
Me.
all good. We're all good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. And also thank you, Bryann. I learned a lot myself. I'm sure our listeners as well. Until next time, keep up with the good work and see you on next week's episodes. Take care.
Take care.